Do we need ranking belts in HEMA? Do we want ranking belts in HEMA? I'd argue that we already have them. Let's talk about it. Hey guys, James Riley from Goliath Historical Fencing Academy. Today I wanted to spend some time dealing with the topic of formalized ranking belts, such as the way that they issue them or bestow them in Eastern martial arts traditions, such as Judo or even Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm not here to have the same type of discussion that's mostly been had. You know, if a club wants to have some kind of rank structure and, bring people up for whatever reason, whether or not that be to acknowledge their competency or to acknowledge their role within the club, that's great. I think that everyone should everyone should organize their operations whatever way benefits the people of that club. What I'm more interested in is what a ranking belt means or can mean, particularly with regards to fencing ability. Because the fact is, there are various levels in fencing, and those levels are true and real, regardless of whether or not a ranking belt has been properly and formally bestowed. And so today I want to talk through what I regard as the levels of fencing that the belts themselves would or could potentially symbolize. And I want to talk about why that's relevant for the purposes of our own practice, and particularly with regards to how we engage with people that we assess as having some degree of competency within their own practice. The first belt that we're going to talk through today is the white belt. A white belt is a noob, somebody who's never been given a sword before and has no idea how to use it. They may have a sense that they should cut or they should thrust, they should parry, but they haven't been shown, they haven't been given the particular skills and competencies of any of those particular actions to be able to do them to some reliable degree of success. So maybe they choose thrust every time, but their thrust is going to be different every time. They don't have a reliable, repeatable way of performing an action. And because of this, they have mixed success. So when they perform an action, they're not really shown whether or not, through the performance of that action, they're not really shown whether or not it was the right choice or if it was done well enough to be the right choice, or potentially it was the wrong choice. Even as they performed it technically correctly, they ended up losing for some other reason. So people who are white belts really don't know why what they're doing is working or not working, right? And so what they're trying to do through their fencing is learn about that. They're trying to experience the space. They're trying to create a map of this new world that they're in and sort of begin to get a sense of how things work. But really, it's more about exploration than it is about executing or performing well in the environment. The next belt that we're going to talk about is the blue belt. The blue belt is further along in their practice than the white belt. They kind of have a sense of how things work. They know what the choices are. They're able to reliably perform actions to some degree of satisfaction, particularly the satisfaction of the moment or the requirement. So they can parry effectively if someone throws a cut at them. They can cut back, they can thrust, they can move in and out of distance. And often a blue belt will also have a set of actions that they perform that will generally work, right? So things that they can do, maybe it's some kind of set play, it's a setup for someone, feint and then a cut, or a parry riposte, something that they've developed the physical competency to be able to do relatively well, that they can choose when they go into a fencing bout. And they'll often have 2 or 3 of them that they kind of cycle through. Now, the difference between a blue belt and some of the more advanced belts in this paradigm is that they're not adapting. They don't really understand why a choice that they make is the correct choice in the moment. They've developed it such that it will achieve some degree of success. But even as the way that they're performing the action is reliable, the success that they get from the action is less reliable. And that's because they're not paying attention to what their training partners are doing in response. Either they're not paying attention or they don't know how to use the information of their training partners to change their own behavior, whether that be to exploit deficiencies demonstrated by the training partner, or whether that be to kind of lure that training partner into their own proficiencies. And so a blue belt is mostly going to go into an exchange, pick among a set of behaviors that they've developed and trained, and attempt to execute them, and then look back at their performance as pass or fail. Did it work in that moment or not? And they're not really checking their behavior against what they see from their training partner. The next belt that we're going to talk through is the purple belt. The way that we're going to distinguish a purple belt from a blue belt is not only will they have a greater degree of core competencies and fundamental skills and abilities within the domain, but also they're going to be very sensitive and observant of their training partner's behavior, and they're going to use that behavior to inform their future choices. So for instance, a blue belt might walk into an exchange thinking, I'm going to walk in with my sword low, I'm going to hang and parry their attack and cut around. A purple belt will watch that training partner walk in and see the point is low and make a choice in that moment. They might decide, I'm going to cut into the opening that he's giving me and see how he responds. So in that moment, blue belt walks in, point low, purple belt cuts to the head, blue belt takes with the hanging parry and cuts around. Purple belt gets hit. So what makes him a purple belt is not the fact that he got hit in that moment, but it's the fact that he's going to use that information later in the bout. So now the purple belt knows that the blue belt, when they walk in point low, has the intention of taking with a hanging parry and then cutting around. And so the purple belt may use that to set some counterplay up later in the exchange. And so the next time that the blue belt cycles through that particular action, they walk into measure or almost measure point low, they look like they're inviting the cut. If I'm a purple belt, I'll know that that's an invitation, and I might cut into that with the expectation that you're going to take hanging parry and cut around, and I can either hit Indes the hanging parry, I can interrupt your action, or I can just wait for you to complete your cut around, take that, and then start my offense after that. So what makes me a purple belt in this moment is the fact that I'm able to use what you've shown me as a means by which to anticipate how you're going to behave later and use that to my advantage or to your disadvantage. The next belt that we're going to talk about is the brown belt. The brown belt is going to be very similar to a purple belt in that they're going to be observant of their training partner's choices. The difference between a brown belt and a purple belt is that they're not going to assume that just because you performed an action a certain way the first time means that that action is going to have the same intention the next time you do it. What do I mean? If you walk in as a blue belt and with your point low and invite the cut to the head so that you can hang and parry and cut around. If I'm a purple belt and I do that once and I get hit, as a purple belt, if I assess that you're a blue belt, I might do the exact same thing to draw the exact same kind of response, because I know that as a blue belt, that's what you've trained to do, and that you're not going to adapt to a new set of circumstances based on what happened in the exchange previously. If, as a brown belt, I assess that you're a purple belt, my expectation is that you're not going to try and hit that second time. My expectation is that because your action was successful in that moment, that you're going to adapt to my future adaptation. That you're going to change your behavior because you know that me getting hit that time is going to influence the way that I fence subsequently. And so what a brown belt is going to do is they're going to constantly adapt not only to the behaviors that you've shown with the correct counterplay, but they're going to anticipate future counterplay based on how previous exchanges have already gone. At last, we reach the end, the black belt, the ultimate rank. How do we distinguish a black belt from a brown belt? We already know that the brown belt is able to use the information in exchange to help inform the future choices that they're going to make based on the expected adaptations that they assess in their training partner. Those adaptations might be no adaptations in the case of a blue belt, or the adaptations might be that because you hit successfully as a purple belt, you know that that hitter won't be there the next time. And I can use that information to help guide my future choices. What makes a black belt special is their ability through their behavior to influence the choices that you make. And so they're not just observing, but they're manipulating you through their behavior to think this is the correct option in this moment. And they know exactly what to do to make you commit to some sort of choice that if they're able to reliably predict it, then they'll be at an advantage. So it's a common trope in Eastern martial arts sporting contests such as judo or jiu-jitsu that a black belt just is able to deal with anything that you throw at them effortlessly. It's as though they always know exactly what you're going to do and they're one step ahead. And the truth is, there's a way in which their advanced competency in all of the aspects of the practice make that kind of a real thing. They have such a heightened sensitivity, they have such knowledge of the practice that they can just respond effortlessly with feeling and sensitivity and perform the correct embodied action. But there's another sense in which what they are doing the whole time is guiding you down a path. So it's not that they're just able to see everything that you choose before you choose it. Rather, they're making you make those choices through their own behavior. If that's a blue belt, they might just invite you to perform the action that they know that you've demonstrated a competency in. If that's a purple belt, they might invite you to make a particular adaptation. And if that's a brown belt, they might change the mini game entirely. They might take advantage of your focus in one area. They might cause you to have a certain degree of focus in one area and then change the play space where the game is being played. So for instance, if a black belt and a brown belt are fencing, maybe the black belt offers the brown belt a weak point to assess their training partner. And maybe the brown belt sees that weak point and thinks, well, what are they doing? Are they offering me their weak point so that I can set into them? Is it their intention to take? Should I set weakly and then fly off into as their taker? Or do they know that I might set weakly and try and catch me inside my provocation, inside my weak thrust, and either hit with a slice or hit with some kind of knock rising into my zucken? Or are they inviting me to strengthen so that they can immediately fly off and cut Zek to my hands? Are they looking for me to strengthen so that they can Durchwechseln and take in long point on the other side? All of these could be options as a brown belt that I might be assessing in my training partner. And the black belt, their intention the whole time was to catch me inside all of those decisions and hit Streichen to the hands while I'm processing the different ways that could be, that could play out and the different tactics that I could employ. So the fact that they put me into a mini game by offering me a weak point, knowing that as I was processing the implications of their weak point, that would distract me from working Indes to respond to them taking a cheap, shallow target. These are the types of ways that a black belt is going to approach the fight. So where does that leave us? One thing I want to think about when we're looking at this belt framework, this new theoretical framework for understanding our level in fencing, is how can we use it to assess our own fencing? Do I understand what I'm doing? What technique have I chosen in a moment? Am I sure that I've done that technique technically well enough for it to work against what it's supposed to work against? Do I even know what it's supposed to work against? And how well am I able to assess that in the moment or in my training partner? If I know that I can choose the right technique in a moment, that I know what it will work against and what it will lose against, I know that I can do it technically well, then the next question is, how well can I assess that quality in my training partner? And if I can see that they can do things every bit as well as I can, then how well can I read their intention so that I can use the knowledge, use my own knowledge of the game and their knowledge of the game to create a safe tactical game plan so that I can play a more sophisticated version of the game than just trying to make things work without really interacting with my opponent in any way. Thanks for watching Historical Fencing Channel content. If you'd like to learn more, check out our Patreon link in the description for detailed, one-on-one, tailored instruction. And don't forget to like and subscribe.